What is going on, everyone? Today we have a really fun episode. In honor of Father's Day, I gathered a few fathers from across the datasphere, I guess you would say. We got together to draft a team of dads from TV and movies. So we talked about all of our favorite dads from movies and TV shows based on different categories, took turns drafting a team. You can also go over to Instagram and vote on your favorite team. This conversation was so fun. Let me know what you guys think about it. And a very happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. My name's Anthony Franzese. You're listening to the Successful Working Parents podcast. Normally, we interview working parents about how they're able to balance it all and still thrive. But today, we have a very special Father's Day episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a follow. Anyway, on to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents. Today, we have a very special episode. In honor of Father's Day, I have invited three badass fathers onto the show, and we are drafting fictional fathers from TV and movies. So if any of you have ever done a fantasy football draft before, it's going to work similarly. We have 5 categories: sitcom dad, TV drama dad, comedy movie dad, dramatic movie dad, and wild card, which I have given no instructions on and is left totally up to interpretation. And we're going to take turn drafting from those 5 categories until we've all assembled the best fictional team of dads possible. We have an order here of Will, Zach, Paul, and then myself. So I'll let the guests introduce themselves on their picks. Before we get started, though, I just wanted to ask you guys, this was an interesting exercise, and I think that different categories had different difficulties to them. I feel like sitcoms had a lot of dads, right? But then I felt like the dramatic TV shows they're all like really bad characters. I don't know what you guys thought as you were kind of going through this.
I mean, I'll say that the sitcom dads, there are a lot of funny dads, but they kind of fall into that trope, the bumbling dad, the guy who can't quite figure it out. But in the end, he saves the day, but he kind of stumbles along and like, boy, what do I do? So while they may amuse us, they may ring true for some people, they're not exactly the models of sort of fatherhood in 2025 that we may want to emulate.
Yeah, I feel like sorry, go ahead, Zach. Okay, yeah, I'll jump in and not be endlessly Canadian about it. So I felt that the same way as Paul was saying. But I felt that, to be honest, more about the dramatic dads, because one big trope of when I was coming up in what was called the golden era of television is there was the character who was like really competent, like, who was really good at getting things done, and but he was also kind of cheated on his wife endlessly and was violent probably, in a lot of cases. But the redeeming quality was always the care for the children. But that's kind of the lowest bar for being a dad, is to love your kids. So it's like there's got to be much more there. So I found those dramatic dads were hard to pick from. I think I have a good one, but yeah, I had to do some deep thinking.
Yeah, I agree. Zach, you're going to say something?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm working on a piece to talk about the challenges of dads today and like how to get out of the, I talk a lot about mental load that gets put on the moms. And I think when I think about my upbringing, none of the people that I watched on a consistent basis growing up, I would put on my draft list, like Homer Simpson, Everyone Loves Raymond, 2.5 Men, King and Queens, like none of those guys that showed up on my television I would choose for this draft, which goes to show I think my dad was a pretty good dad. I think he was ahead of his time in like his emotional awareness and what I saw on TV, which I think shapes how we think the rest of the world thinks and expects of us. There's what we have at home, and then there's what we're imagining the perception is out there. It's really not very good. And it makes a lot of sense why I think a lot of guys, especially in our generation, are struggling, especially to match up to what I think a lot of moms are expecting out of us and or what people are expecting out of us, because I don't think we had great role models in a lot of ways.
Totally.
And so I'm glad we're doing this draft to tease out who were some of the gems. And I even noticed some of the people I'm planning on picking were kind of one-dimensional characters because you only saw a couple good things of them possibly.
Yeah.
And so you didn't get the full spectrum of the challenges that they dealt with, which is useful in thinking about what was good about them, sort of.
Yeah, totally.
I just want to say one thing what Zach just said. We had a company dad's a pre-Father's Day meetup yesterday, and we were actually talking about TV dads, and we also just get a bit dark, but we're like, probably the best dad of our generation. I'm kind of a little bit older than you guys. Was Dr. Huxtable in the Cosby Show, and of course this is Bill Cosby, who on TV he was a doctor, he had kids, he had a loving wife, and all this. You're like, that guy was a model. Then of course in real life he's slipping roofies into people's drinks and drugging them, and he goes off to prison, and you're like, huh. Well, like, the TV version of him seemed fairly solid. The real life version of him seemed very creepy, and that's why I think this is going to be a great exercise, Anthony. So thanks for bringing us all together.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. So let's get started. So Will, you're first. So yeah, why don't you kind of introduce yourself briefly to the audience as well, and then again, you can choose from any category, and then kind of explain who you're picking.
So my name is Will Greenblatt. I like to call myself a recovering child actor. I grew up acting on film and TV since I was 7 years old, and I thought that's what I was going to do with my life. And then after going to theater school and really having a crisis of, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and realizing it was not, I kind of became an English teacher for a while, and then I started a business, and I brought it all together to become a public speaking and storytelling coach. So what I'm really interested in is, how do you get people to tell better stories on stage, in person, online, and really represent themselves honestly, authentically, to create kind of deeper connection, trust. And I specifically work with coaches and speakers a bunch, as well as entrepreneurs. And I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and we've got another little girl on the way due in September. So I'm still just starting this dad thing, but I'm loving over 50% of the minutes. I'd say, yeah. So yes, my first category, I'm going to go with just the first one up there, which is the TV drama, or at least what I think is. I'm going to start with TV drama anyways, because I think I found a gem underneath the potential pick of this one. And that is from the show, The Sopranos. But it's not Tony. This dad... Now, I have to say, Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini, taught me how to act in theater school. I would come home and I would watch him on The Sopranos, and then I would go into theater school the next day and just be Tony Soprano. And every actor I know had that one character or actor who they just copied before they figured out how to be themselves. So James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano, huge impact on my life. But as a dad, endless infidelity. He hit AJ a bunch of times in a way that didn't need to do. Was always very sweet with Meadow, but maybe just treated his son and his daughter differently in a way that was maybe a bit harmful. And just the way he treated Carmela, the never being around with the family and the lifestyle he had. This other dad, same family, same kind of expectations, same criminal element that he had to, embody, but he was such a sweet, present father, never took a Gumar, never took the Kumar, the girlfriend that they were all expected to have, was always faithful to the mother. And then when the mother passed away, he was very present for his kids, always there, and was just super, super solid as a dad, helping his kids while he was grieving. This is Bobby Bacala from The Sopranos. Bobby Bacala.
Wow.
I love this guy so much, and he was always ridiculed by the other guys for being too soft, being too sensitive, not taking a girlfriend, and they ridiculed him, but he was just a stand-up guy the whole way through. And he got killed, if I remember correctly, in a toy store buying toys for his kids.
Spoilers.
Oh, yeah, sorry. If you haven't seen it by now, though, what are you doing?
That's
you got to watch
a great pick. I mean, yeah.
No,
I had Tony on my list, not to I would pick him, but he came up a lot when I was brainstorming. But that's a great pick.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, and you're right. He was just ridiculed, but it was actually because he was a good person in a show of horrible people.
Exactly. Yeah. All
right, Zach, you are up.
I think the one I'm gonna go with first is a comedy movie, which this feels like an odd one, but Adam Sandler and Big Daddy. What made this a little bit easier for me, I think, if there was a girlfriend involved in as a main character in that movie, probably wouldn't be my pick. But because we got to see him in figure out how to be a father to this kid dropped on his doorstep while his roommate was gone for a while, it was great seeing the character development. I actually, the very end of the movie when he he's in the courtroom and like they're trying to figure out like where's this kid gonna go, and there's that moment of like he has that moment with his dad, um, and everyone like goes on their phones and calls the dad in their life. Like that moment, like has stuck in my head for a long time. I had this birthday wish for a long time saying that I wanted my birthday wish is that everybody calls, everyone, like after I blow out my candles, my wish, I say it out loud and that everyone calls someone, says I love you, and have that like reverberate into the universe. But I really loved his character development, and we watched how he like pulls things together and he figures out how to be a caring person. I remember like when he spilled milk, he would put newspaper on it and let it sit there. And like we watch as he ended up talking with the preschool teacher, like, are you seeing these crazy things at home that we're seeing in the classroom? And we just see how he like evolves and like figures out how to show up in a better way to. And I think also like I remember when he figured out Scuba Steve was going to be the way that he helped his kid get into bath. Like he pulled out the stops. I think that's what good dads do.
Yeah, good pick. Good. I mean, interesting first two picks off the board of all total dads available, but I like it.
I don't know. I'm kind of on thinking along the same lines as Zach. This Paul Sullivan, founder of the company Dads, Media Community Workplace Education for what we call lead dads. And I don't want to big time you, Zach, because I like you a lot, but I'm going to stick with movie comedy as well. And I'm going to see your Adam Sandler character and raise you an Adam Sandler character. But this one is the father in You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. And this was a more recent Adam Sandler film in which his daughter is actually in it, his actual real life daughter. And most people, this is a bat mitzvah. A young woman turns 13, rite of passage, big event. And I have an almost 13-year-old daughter, and she and I have been watching Adam Sandler movies for longer than she probably should have. Her favorite movie is Happy Gilmore, which is probably not appropriate for her to watch. She's like 7, but she still likes it. And I think there's something about Adam Sandler and the fathers that he plays in general, and it makes me think that in real life he's probably a pretty solid human being. And it's the whole complexity of it. And having, my daughters are 8, almost 13, and almost 16, and the complexity of going from, when babies are young, a baby is just logistics. It's just logistics management there. Whereas with once you get these girls or kids who are in their teenage years, it becomes a lot more complicated. And how do you sort of stay present? How do you stay involved? How do you still see them, for who they are and what they're doing? And yet, set some boundaries here and there. But all along, I think, Adam Sandler, that father character, and You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah is my pick for movie comedy.
Never seen it.
Netflix, you could watch it tonight.
Okay. Two Adam Sandlers in a back-to-back. Wow. Okay. So I'm up. I am going to go with sitcom dad, untouched category so far. And this is, I think, one of the rare examples of not a bumbling dad. He was very kind. He was very understanding. And he seemed to always... His marriage always seemed great, never an issue. And I think just my age when I was watching the show, he just felt like he raised me in some ways. And that is Alan Matthews from Boy Meets World, Corey Matthews' father. All around, just I think, solid dad, solid dude. Didn't really ever seem to have faults. It's gonna wrap around now. So I'm gonna go again. And this time I'm gonna go from TV drama. A little bit of a contentious show recently, but this dad was pretty badass. He was very protective. He suffered some serious tragedy, and then he overcame that, and he was willing to basically not stop a zombie apocalypse by saving his daughter. And that is why I am choosing Joel Miller from The Last of Us, which is, the ultimate sacrifice you can make is the entire world for your daughter. And I think that was special.
It's a great pick.
stop a zombie apocalypse. But all right, that's like
Also, spoilers if you haven't seen it.
I want to say I played the video game, and that's one of the most incredible pieces of storytelling you will ever see in any medium. The first game of The Last of Us, the way that the way that they got real actors and they directed them for the cutscenes. It's completely cinematic throughout. It blends seamlessly. There's a formula for the way you go through the game, and that relationship of Joel, who loses his daughter and then finds this young woman that he has to protect, and what the length that he goes to is like, yeah, just insane and so beautiful. And that decision that every single father resonated with. I mean, and I have a girl too, so especially like as soon as I'm like, yep, I would.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't had the chance to save their daughter to prevent a zombie apocalypse? You know?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, if put in that position, I would definitely have made the wrong choice for humanity and the right choice for my daughter, and fucked the entire planet over just so I could save my little girl. Like,
totally, yeah. All right, Paul, we're back to you now.
Okay, so yeah, I'll see your zombie apocalypse and raise it a real apocalypse, and that is coming from a book that's about 20 years old now. It's Cormac McCarthy. Well, Cormac McCarthy, great novelist, not the happiest guy you've ever read in your life, but the book is called The Road. Cormac McCarthy's The Road, and it's essentially about a father and a son in this apocalyptical world. You don't know what happened. You don't know what caused it. All you know is that they're going, and they're continuing to go on, and the father is protecting his son, even though we all know, like reading the book, like there's no way out. There's no like good end here, and just the love that father has for his son. And I read it before I had any children, and I remember crying, because that was, before I even really knew what it was like to be a father, to have that deep love, to see this character in Cormac McCarthy's The Road, like persist when persistence was futile, to sort of teach when the lessons wouldn't be, lived, was super powerful. So that's my wild card pick.
Good pick.
Great pick.
Yeah. All right, Zach, you're back.
First off, I'm realizing I didn't introduce myself on the last one. My bad, Anthony.
Okay.
So I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Zach Watson. My main platform is on Instagram. I've been sharing over the past couple of years my journey with implementing the Fair Play method. And for anyone watching the video of this, I have a shirt that says "Recovering Man-Child" on it. I'd like to think that some rappers have like their fun name, and then they have like their actual name. Like Eminem is the real Slim Shady. It's like Zach is the recovering man-child. So a huge part of what I share online is my journey in improving the way that I show up as a partner. I actually don't talk that much about fatherhood a lot, but I think a huge part of being a good dad is modeling well for your children what they would hope for as a spouse. So I'm a coach for men. I help them understand invisible labor, mental load, domestic labor, improve the equity at home, and improve their emotional literacy and fluency. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, of course.
For this next one, I'll tell you what, I had a really hard time with TV dramas because I didn't watch that many, but there was one that came up, and as a whole character, I feel like you get to see this person continuously shows up. They kind of take in a young man into their home who's the main character, and throughout the show, we see him make tough choices around his career, showing up for his family and like making sacrifice in there. And one moment that always sticks out to me was he was with a colleague, and his colleague comes on to him, and he, like, you see for a hot second, like he really thinks about cheating on his wife. This woman's really beautiful, really sexual, and very much like coming on to him. And he makes the really, I think, challenging choice in that moment is like, do you follow your body parts that are headed in one direction, or like do you remember what's important to you? And he makes the good choice of saying, I need to go. This doesn't. We probably can't be coworkers if this is going to be the way that we're working near each other. And so Sandy Cohen from The OC was actually a show that I watched when I was a teenager. Tried to grow out Ryan hair did not come out because I couldn't grow sideburns in high school. But Sandy Cohen, he was the father that took in Ryan, and he was a lawyer, and I thought he was a really good dad. There were a lot of moments where you saw him and his wife have challenges, but it felt like he was emotionally available and willing to take an L, and or like he was willing to come back and apologize. And I feel like there's a lot of times where, especially with other dads, we see them go harder into their emotions and they stay dysregulated and they don't back down. And I think that softness that he offered was really valuable to his family.
Awesome. Nice pick. And well
Yeah,
said. I haven't seen. Go ahead, Will.
Sorry, go ahead, Anthony.
No, I haven't seen the OC. Is all I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful pick, and I remember watching the OC in high school, and yeah, like there, we would make fun of it. I remember my girlfriend at the time was watching it, and I would make fun of her, and then I would kind of like go, I guess I'll watch 5 minutes of this, and then I'd start watching it, and then I was like, became addicted. And I remember that, and so my pick coming up next is also about a dad who takes a young man into his home. So that's a really interesting connection there. And for me, I'm going TV comedy dad. And that's Uncle Phil. It's got to be Uncle Phil. I mean, this guy, like in a landscape of bumbling fathers, of heavily flawed dads. I mean, this guy was your surrogate dad, and I think the fact that he was the uncle to Will made him feel like he could be your second dad as well. I had a great father growing up in lots of ways. Obviously, he also he was still learning things from his generation that all we can really do is be one increment step better. I think as the generations go by, like whatever your father was able to give you. And so with Uncle Phil, he was really successful, but he tried to make sure his kids understood where they came from, where he and his wife came from. He was always a good husband. He always worked things out with his wife. And that scene where he hugs Will after Will's dad leaves him again. This is a famous scene. I don't know if you guys remember that, when Will says, "How come he don't want me, man?" And then his dad, Uncle Phil, just fucking grabs him in a bear hug, and the episode ends. And that moment, for me, just I go on YouTube that once in a while when I feel like getting the feels. And it's just some of the most beautiful acting too from James Avery, who passed away, the guy who played Uncle Phil. But yeah, what a dad.
Yeah. Surprised he fell this far on the draft, but great choice. You get to go again though, Will.
Okay. So let me pull up my.
Got to build up the drama
here
for us this time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot.
I forgot on the first one, and then that last one I started doing, I was like, "Ooh, this is fun."
Oh, this is better. Yeah, it's way better. Okay, I'm gonna go movie comedy, and I'm gonna try to go. I'm just gonna do it, and I'm sorry if I'm taking somebody else's spot, but I just got to go with the big one.
It's a draft, man.
So one of the things as fathers that I think we can all relate to is the tension between letting your kid get into trouble, into scrapes, figuring things out by themselves, getting hurt, making their own way, and helping them, supporting them, keeping them safe, showing them the right way to do it. It's like a daily thing. You watch your daughter struggle with something, and I'm just like, let me do it because I'll be better and faster. But then you're like, she's got to learn. And then the idea of like, when you're at the playground, do I let her go up that big metal bar thing by herself? I know she can do it. What if she falls? That constant tension that you feel, it's physical in your body, knowing that and not knowing what the right thing to do all the time is. This dad, his instinct fell on the protection side because of a horrible tragedy that he went through with his wife and his other children. His remaining child, he wanted nothing more than to protect them. And that's his entire impetus for the first part of this story, is how do I keep my child safe? What can I do to keep them safe? What can I do to make sure nothing ever bad happens to them? And then the ultimate nightmare that befalls a dad happens, and his child gets kidnapped. And he crosses heaven and earth and an entire animated ocean to go find his child. And this is, of course, Marlin from Finding Nemo.
Wow.
And the movie is, when you think about it without thinking about it's a cartoon, is pretty dark.
I had
But
no
it
idea where
is-
this was going. I had no idea.
I thought you were gonna go with Taken.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Taken. Yeah, I mean, hell of
I was
a
like,
dad,
how is this
too,
how is this a
for sure.
comedy? What he's describing?
Yes.
This is crazy.
This is a comedy movie for children, and
Yeah.
I've seen it about 20 times now. I watched it in the theater with my father actually when it came out, funnily enough, and I remember seeing him cry. And I now have seen it with my daughter about 20 times, and it's the most brilliantly constructed story. It's so perfect. But that dad, not only does he cross the ocean to find his kid, but at the end, he has to let Nemo swim into the net in order to save Dory. And Nemo says, "Dad, I can do this." And he has to let go of his fin and go, "Yes, I believe you can." And it's his journey from overprotection to let him go, let him live his life. And it's it's perfect. That movie's perfect.
Good call. Good call. Zach, you're up.
I had to cross that one off my list. That was what I was
Sorry,
going to go with that one.
I'm just happy I don't have to follow that. Like, I don't know how you follow.
Yeah, that was
I
good.
mean, the guy's a storyteller, you know.
That's not a good one.
Thanks to
so I'm
Zach
gonna
for
go
the
with-
reminder.
Yeah, was that not super fun watching us all on the edge of our seats?
Much better, yeah.
So I'm gonna go with the drama movie next. So this character, this movie came out in the 2000s. I was in high school, and I remember the sport that it's based around was something that I was continuously watching. I really loved how this dad, he was up against a lot of challenges with the community on how to run the life of his son and the activities that his son was involved in. He put down some really scary boundaries that I think most of us would really struggle to put down. He knew that he had to be hard on these kids or they wouldn't grow, kind of similar to what you're just talking about there, Will. In so many, like, he made some really hard choices, and like he got some immediate feedback that like he was not doing a good job. But he stayed really true to his mission. He stayed really true to what was important to him, which was to help these young men grow. We watch him, I think halfway through the movie, he seems to be going really well. His basketball team is doing really well. And then all of a sudden, he discovers the underbelly of what's going on is they're getting really confident on the court, and they're not showing up on the other end of things. And that's when the plot really thickens. I don't know if anyone knows what this movie is yet, but
I have a guess.
Coach Carter is, I think he makes such a hard choice to like lock the gym, fight the parents that are saying this is all they have. And he's like, that's the problem, is that is all that they have. I want so much more for them. Knowing that it's based off, a real life occurrence of a coach that did that. I think when we watch his son, like he's so lovingly hard on his son. Like he expects so well of him. And I think he sets him up so well to have like a bright future. And again, like he doesn't do the easy thing of letting him skate by. He doesn't do the easy thing of like having him be what I imagine. There's a lot of sons that their dads are coaches, and then they don't have to show up. Like they have a lot of that privilege. I think he does a really great job towing that line of helping them grow and providing a good environment for them to grow inside of, and losing some of those best players right up front. So that's my pick for drama movie.
Good
Awesome.
One of my favorite movies. Well, Paul, you got to top that. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I'll go with TV drama. And this is a show that was special for me because I watched all of it with my own father. Like my father comes down once a week to help out with our kids, and we would we would watch it together. At some point, we'd wait. We have to catch up, and it starts with the FBI's most wanted criminal shows up at FBI headquarters. Takes his hat off. They see him. They can't believe that he's there. He's immediately on the ground, surrounded by guys and guys, taken in. And that's how the story starts. And what it becomes is you're trying to figure out for the 11, 12 years that this TV drama runs, is he really the father of this agent? Is he, has he come back to help this woman? And he goes into this where he goes from being the FBI's most wanted to being an informant and helping them catch all of these really, bad criminals that they only would catch because of his knowledge as the FBI's most wanted. And before the series is over, the woman who everybody suspects is his daughter. She gets shot. Lots of people get shot. People get shot all the time. And that sends him into this spiral because she was sure it was her father. He never really said. There was complicated issues with her mom, and in the end, it has this really anticlimactic ending, unfortunately. But to me, I loved it as much for the love that the FBI's most wanted person showed to this FBI agent as I did for the experience of watching all 11 seasons with my dad. And this character is Raymond Reddington, played by James Spader in The Blacklist, which I thought was just a really phenomenal show, and that exploration of just how complicated life could be for a dad who was, we know from our research that 18% of fathers in the United States are divorced, widowed, or otherwise single. And here is this guy who was, kind of coming back after being an absent dad and trying to make the most of it.
I've never seen The Blacklist, but you sold it for me.
Neither.
I'm in now.
It's a good one. But one of the funny parts is I was once at a wedding with a real Hollywood celebrity, and because I'm bald and was wearing mirrored glasses, the waiter said, "Are you James Spader?" And I said, "I'm not James Spader." I was like, "You're James Spader." And I'm like, "I'm not James Spader, but Allison Williams is over there, and she's a real movie star, and I'm not." He's like, "You're totally James Spader, and you don't want to admit it." I was like, "But I have seen The Blacklist." So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm into it now. I'm gonna have to watch it.
Could have at least gotten a free meal or something out of it.
Well, it was a wedding. It was already free, so I was okay.
So something, whatever they give celebrities.
Okay, I'm gonna go with drama movie dad. So this dad, he's very wise. He was stern but caring. I would say regal. He wanted his son to follow in his footsteps, but he didn't want to. He didn't rush him. He wanted him to be a kid and not, get in over his head until he was ready. And he even does his best to be there for his son ethereally after he suffers a great tragedy. And I am talking, of course, about Mufasa from The Lion King. Just a great example of a father figure, and let Simba be a kid until he was ready to be king. And I think that was something we should do for all of our kids, is just let them be kids until they're ready to not be kids anymore. And then, man, all right, I just have to do this. I'm sorry, but I am going to go with a father who had a redemptive arc. I think that part of being a dad, especially a first-time dad, is making some mistakes and then righting them later, right? This guy didn't have a dad himself growing up, which lent itself to all sorts of issues, including being, attracted to the wrong male role models and becoming, going to the wrong side of the fence, if you will.
What genre are we on right now?
This is for dramatic movie. I'm sorry, Wild Card. This is for Wild Card.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, I think that ultimately sometimes you make mistakes in parenting, but you make the ultimate sacrifice and you redeem yourself, and you do what you can to learn from your mistakes and be there for your kid, perhaps in the afterlife. That's why I am going with Darth Vader for my wild card pick.
I was thinking about Darth Vader just now as you're saying wild card, and I was thinking, it might have been you planted that seed of like he wants his son to come with him, but he like gives him some space.
Yeah.
And I was thinking similarly of like Darth Vader around wild card because I think I think it would be pretty. We're talking about like The Last of Us, right? I imagine that would be a pretty interesting film if we watched Star Wars in a series or in a movie from Darth Vader's perspective once he goes to the dark side. Like,
yeah,
I've been on a Kendrick Lamar kick since the Super Bowl, and like hearing his albums and talking about how like he kind of oscillates between like evil and like ego and like kind of going to the dark side of like his fame. And I feel like that's probably what a lot of Darth Vader goes through. And it took till the final movie for him to see what Emperor Palpatine was for what he was, and that he didn't want his son to perish.
Yeah, it's funny when you do this because you start to really like think very specifically about the dad, and it's like, yeah, like he didn't have a father himself. He just fell in with the wrong crowd, and that's all today. That's a recipe for disaster in itself, right? And then you just start slicing up younglings.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when you say fell into like a bad crowd, it's like he was groomed by Palpatine as he was this rising star, and like that it was a very manipulative move that I think like looking back, like I'm curious if we were to metaphorize that whole experience, like what that grooming looks like as a more typical thing that happens in 2025 in the real world.
Totally. Paul?
I was thinking you were going somewhere else when I was listening to that description. I thought it was a Carl Weathers character, Chubbs, in Happy Gilmore.
What?
And I like total father
No,
figure.
you did not. No, you
I just want to bring Adam Sandler back.
That was funny. Yeah, I mean, this draft is almost entirely Adam Sandler movie.
Coming back to Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
I'll come back. I'll go to movie drama here, and I'll say a story. I sort of referenced this, with the Raymond Reddington pick before, but we know there are a lot of dads out there who are trying as hard as they can, but because of circumstances, sometimes they're making, sometimes not. They're not able to be there 100% of the time. And this drama is about a divorced dad or soon to be divorced dad who is fighting for custody of his son, and he's doing it at a time when it is not acceptable. Like the default is the mom will get custody, and this father is showing how much he loves his son. He's juggling work. He's coming home early. He's taking him to meetings. He's canceling meetings. He's doing all the things that you would expect of a father, but the social forces are sort of arrayed against him, and they're making it way more difficult for him to be a dad than it should be. And the denouement of the movie is that his wife, ex-wife, the mom, is given custody of their son, and he breaks down, and he can't believe this is happening, and he decides not to contest it because he doesn't want to put his son through that again. And he'll see him when he can see him. This is before the time of sort of custody plans and shared custody, and he doesn't give up, but he backs away for his son to save his son. And I'm going to spoil the movie. It's an old movie. You've either seen it or you haven't. And that's in the end, the mom comes and says, I can't take you love him so much. You're such a great dad. I'm going to step back, and you're going to have primary custody, and I will have secondary custody. And that's how the movie ends. And this movie is Ted Kramer, who's the father in the movie. Kramer versus Kramer, one of Robert Benton. Robert Benton just passed away a couple weeks ago. One of Robert Benton's great films, wins an Oscar, and he gets to talk about change. That to me, what we're doing at the Company of Dads is really trying to change the perception of fathers and what they can do and how involved they can be. And that movie, it really puts sort of a stake in the ground to say, like, fathers can be caregivers, fathers can be the primary parent. So movie drama, I go with Ted Kramer in Kramer versus Kramer.
Mm-hmm. Good choice.
I was expecting Mrs. Doubtfire at one point there.
I was too, actually.
If she was played by Adam Sandler, it would have been. And not Robin Williams is great, but not Adam Sandler.
Yeah. All right, Zach, you're up.
So this is a tough one. So I'm doing comedy TV, and I really struggled with this category, and I'm actually gonna I'm going to reference to a show that I think explains why I have such a hard time with this category. So I think a huge part of the education that I put out there on a consistent basis is this, like, kind of similar to what you were just saying, Paul, is like this bumbling dad concept was taught to us, I think, much more so than was necessarily modeled by our parents. And I think, like, I remember for a while, I've been thinking a little bit about this for the past couple weeks since we had the assignment. And I've been thinking about, like, what are the shows I grew up on, and thinking about Everyone Loves Raymond. Like, this is not my pick. I definitely didn't want to do him. And he's the first person that my brain goes to, because that's probably the most dadding I saw on, like, sitcom. And it was hard because there's so many dads to choose from, and, like, my first thought is they kind of all suck. Part of it is because of the genre. Like, comedy TV is tough to do because, like, how do you make your jokes without there being some bumbling daddishness to it? And it reminds me of, there's a show, Kevin Can F Himself, in 2021, 2022, where they kind of, I actually haven't watched it, and it's, like, on my to-do list. We don't have any time these days to watch, like, adult things. It's all kid stuff in our house. But the concept of the show is that they oscillate back and forth between sitcom and drama. And the Annie Murphy plays the wife, and the dad is like a king of queens kind of guy, and like, there's the background camera laughter, like the live audience laughter, and then it keeps going back into drama of, like, this is actually a terrible marriage she doesn't want to be in. And it, like, shows, like, the underbelly of, like, when so many women have seen these sitcoms, this is what they're experiencing. Like, why is everybody laughing at that? That wasn't funny. So I'm doing the best I can with this category. I'm going with Phil. Damn it, I gave it away. I'm going with Phil Dunphy from Modern Family, and I think of the handful of shows that I've seen from that series, I know there's a moment when their oldest daughter is pregnant, and she's, like, debating whether to have the kid and whether the father's going to be, like, a viable human being, because he's, like, a total idiot. And we see him have this moment of, like, being really caring, and I think he had some practice in nursing, and she's going to her mom, asking, like, what am I going to do? Like, this guy's an idiot, kind of. And she said, like, Phil really stepped up when you were born. And we, as much as there's a lot of moments where we see this character being a bit of that bumbling idiot, but less so than, I think, the early 2000s and, like, in the 1990s. We see, I think, a much more multidimensional character than we saw in the 90s and 2000s. And so, even though that bumbling dad still exists in our culture, I think it's starting to evolve. And I really feel like in the drama series and, like, even the comedy movies, we see a lot of these things, and it's the sitcoms that really get me, because that feels like that's the family television. I don't know how families do it today. I know we would watch dinner, and, like, we'd watch sitcoms either right after or during when I was a kid. And I'm curious if that style of, like, having sitcoms be a part of your daily routine, like, that occurs to me as arguably one of the most important places where we can shape the brains of our children in, like, what's acceptable living, and what acceptable relationships kind of look like.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a good example of a modern bumbling dad who is not totally bumbling and is very caring. So I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, and he's also trying his best.
He's trying his best.
He's trying his best. He's engaged as he can be.
Yes.
He's a bit scatterbrained. He's not like
Homer Simpson.
Phoning it. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, you're up. Also, guys, we're looking at like 8 more minutes, so I know we're having a lot of fun, but we got 5 picks left to make.
Okay. So this, I'm going to call this a drama. I think it counts, but this is a drama movie. This dad is pretty poor, and he has got 7 children, and he loves what he does, and that's why they're poor, because he does the job that he cares about, and he has not been promoted, or he doesn't get promoted until near the end of it's a series of films actually, but he has stayed where he is at his job because he's doing what he truly loves. And the family is poor, and yet they're one of the most close-knit families. It's 6 boys and 1 girl, and part of me thinks that what's so great about that is that they kept having kids trying for a girl, and they had 6 boys and finally got a girl, so I think that's pretty sweet. And it's one of the most realistic, supportive, while fighting like crazy and making fun of each other, but always sticking up for each other when it matters, families that I've ever seen represented. And that's the Weasley family from Harry Potter and Arthur Weasley. And Arthur Weasley, as well as being an amazing dad to 7 kids, and they all idolize him, even though he's poor, and they get made fun of for that, but they never, ever turn on their dad for that. And because he is a good man, and they know that. And he also takes in Harry and kind of Hermione too, who are kind of orphans in the wizarding world. And it's that's my guy.
All right, you're up again though. Last pick has got to be wild card.
Wild card. Oh, okay. So now that we've had all these conversations about fatherhood, I'm second guessing my wild card pick. I'm basically going to go with this because I really recommend this movie, but maybe not the best dad. I don't think anyone's seen it, but I'll still bury the lead. This man is a soldier, and he is fighting in a war during a time of intense civil war, and it becomes clear that his side is going to lose, and he's got to get out. And he's going to go overseas as a refugee. What he realizes is that he needs a cover story, a convincing cover story to apply for asylum to Europe. He finds a woman who is also single and needs a good cover story, and they find a young girl, same boat, and they all pretend to be a family. They end up in Paris in a really rough housing project as immigrants, South Asian immigrants, in one of the roughest, places you can imagine, run by drug dealers, basically. And this dad is a bit of a thug, and he protects his family against unimaginable violence and circumstances. And even though it's dark as fuck, it's an incredible movie, and it's called Deepan, and it's about the guy's name is Deepan. He takes a dead man's passport and becomes Deepan, but the father is the father figure. He eventually finds a better life for them, but it's him stepping up with these people who he doesn't know, that they were forced together out of circumstance, but he uses all of his trauma and all of his military training to use his violence for good, ultimately, to get his family into a safer position.
Never seen it, but you definitely sold me. Yeah, you definitely sold me on that one.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, you're also up. We got about 4 minutes left, and you got your wild cards up.
I'll go really short. I don't actually love this character because I saw a lot of moments of challenge with him, and we see how he's a really great, he gives the viewer a really great opportunity to self-reflect in looking at their career versus their fatherly duties and their relationship. And he kind of leans into his ego, and because he's struggling so hard with his wife having a career, I'm going to go with Bob Parr from The Incredibles. In that moment where he's pulling his hair out, trying to manage the kid, and he's really struggling with his wife doing better than him, I think, career-wise. And I think it's a really great way for us to self-reflect in that movie. I don't think he's necessarily the greatest character, but I think it's a really awesome opportunity for the viewer.
Nice. That was going to be my pick. But I'll have to come to one.
Sorry.
It's all right. All right, Paul, sitcom dad.
I'm just thinking that, Jack, the baby that he's trying to take care of. I have 3 kids, unlike the rest of you guys. And that's really what happens with your third kid. Your third kid literally will start to set on fire and yell. And you're like, so it was all 100% true. I'll go quick. And best thing to come out of COVID TV-wise to portray positive masculinity, Bandit Healer in Bluey. Funny, but involved dad, and it really, hitting kids at the youngest age to see what does a dad look like who can be funny but still be there to be supportive. So Bandit Healer from Bluey.
I can't believe I didn't come up with that one. Well done.
Interesting to see this one didn't get drafted yet, so I'm going to go with comedy movie dad. Did whatever he could to be with his kids, even when his wife didn't really want him to be, including dressing like an old lady. This is, of course, Mrs. Doubtfire from Mrs. Doubtfire. Just really tried a little bit immature, but tried to do what he could to be there and learned a lot in the process. So shout out to him making the cut at the last pick.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. It was actually a lot of fun to just tell the story of who you were picking, and it was almost less about who you did pick, but I really enjoyed that as well, guessing who you're going to pick. I really appreciate your time. Happy Father's Day to all of you, and happy Father's Day to every father listening, anybody that celebrates. I'll make sure I link to all your things in the show notes of this episode, so if people want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, they can do that there. But thank you guys so much for doing this.
Thank you, Anthony.
This was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Anthony. And just one thing, just assure me, Adam Sandler wins this, right? He's the best one.
We'll have to see which of us wins. That's really what it comes down to.